This came in the mail pretty late yesterday, and I've been waiting for today so I can have a look at them and use them. These are Holbein Gouache. They're it's a set of 24. I think it's the larger set they come in. The smaller sets have very small tubes, so these are, in my opinion, the most intense, possibly best gouache, but they're also the most expensive. So although they're very, very good, there's ones that are almost as good that cost a lot less. So let's take the lid off. Ooh, pretty. This just makes me so happy. I have a primary set of these, which includes black and white and the 3 primary colours, but I don't have this many colours. They actually come in 80 something, but you have to buy them individually. They don't come in a set. What's in here? Here I was hoping for some paintbrushes, but it's just an empty square. Not quite sure why they didn't just make the box that big, but never mind. Still, it would be nice to find paintbrushes in there. So I've got my board all set up. That's Amber. She's a very good watchdog for all the neighbours. She tells us when anybody comes to the neighbour's house, tends to forget about anybody coming to our house. I'll just pick a paintbrush. Oh, so many to choose from. Let's see if this one's clean. Yep. And we'll start off with a Lazarian Crimson. Bob Ross uses this a lot, and people often think he's saying Lizard Crimson. It's pretty close. So just from the top of the tube there, wipe the brush so it's not too watery. Now remembering that gouache dries flat, and the good thing about gouache is it's re-wettable. So once it's dry, you can re-wet it and add other colours to it to mix it, or to paint on top of it. Just don't add too much water and you can paint over the top of it. The next colour is Carmine. Wash the paintbrush. This stuff is popping out of the tube at me. And the other thing about gouache, wipe the brush so it's not too wet, is that it is a very matte finish. So it doesn't dry shiny, it dries very flat. If you don't like that, you can varnish it. You can use, there's a spray varnish you can use, or there's wax that you can rub on top. But matte, it looks like very much like pastels. Rub the brush. Next one is Flame Red. Whoops. As I said, it's popping out at me. Now if you train your eye, you can see that the alizarin Crimson has some blue in it, and the Carmine does too. None of these are prime. The Flame Red should have some orange in it to make it more flame-like. So it's brighter. That's the effect of the orange. See, beautiful colours and very, very densely pigmented. You don't need much. And when we're finished swatching them, I'll grab the white and we'll go back and we'll add a little bit of white. If you add white to a paint, you're tinting it. You're making a tint of that colour. This is brilliant orange. So a tint to add white and a shade to add black. I'll keep these paints for commissions. I won't use it in everyday practice. Let's see what you're seeing. Yes, you can see it all. Almost. There we go. This is permanent yellow orange. Not quite a bright yellow, just towards the orange. Think of what pretty flowers these would create. And here we have the permanent yellow. You can see how creamy it is straight from the tube. It's the texture's perfect for gouache, which should be a cream-like consistency. That is a pretty yellow. But then I think that about all the colours. The next one is a lemon yellow. Although gouache is opaque, some colours are more opaque than others. None of these paints have fillers, that is chalk or anything to make them opaque. They're opaque because the colour is opaque. They use the most opaque pigments there are. Which is the best way to make paint. You can see the top lines dry now and how flat and matte it is. This is leaf green. Make sure I got all that red off my brush before I touch it. And I picked up a hair from somewhere. One thing, whenever I paint, I always have hair on my brush at some stage or other. Comes from owning a lot of dogs and cats. And the next one is emerald green. A bit more paint, water. You can see this one's not as opaque as some of the others colours, and if you water it down you can use them almost as water colour paints. This is permanent green deep. Oops, that's popping out. Jane, dust you again. The start of the next row is olive green. We were just watching the 1940 version of Fantasia, and I suddenly realised that all the illustrations in it are painted with gouache. So if you can get hold of the 1914 or any old cartoon for that matter, and Fantasia's particularly beautiful. It's beautiful images, but this is turquoise blue. Have a look at them and don't just watch the story, look at the images and realise they're gouache. Ah, the colour of peacocks. This is pure blue. And a lot of these names are invented by the manufacturers. There isn't a standard name for colours. You'll get one company calling navy blue, another company will call it admiral blue, another company will call it cadet blue, but it's all the same colour. So apparently this is pure blue. Interestingly, none in this set are actually the primaries. I found that a bit strange. And then this one is ultramarine deep. Now ultramarine used to be made by lapis lazuli, crushing it. I think it was something like 100 grams of the stone would produce 30 grams of the pigment. It was very expensive because to start with, lapis lazuli is a semi-precious stone. But then chemists came up with an artificial colour for it. It became much cheaper. If you want to see the original, what it looks like, if you look at Girl with a Pearl Earring, her scarf is ultramarine, and it is the original with the lapis, and it is not as bright blue as you would think. In fact, it has quite a bit of grey in it. This is Prussian blue, which is the darkest blue in this set, darkest blue in most sets, unless you have indigo, which is darker, but I don't have it. It's not a bad mixture of colours for 24 set. It's a good idea to do a swatch of your new paints, or your new pencils, or your new anything really, to see what exactly it is you're getting, because when they dry they look somewhat different. You can never trust the colour on the tube. It might be close. Some companies get it closer than others. This is blue violet, but you can't trust that they're getting that colour right. Blues are particularly hard to get opaque. I know that from my own search for opaque pigments. Most I could get with blue was semi-opaque. And this is violet. Another good reason to do a swatch and keep it is for reordering, because by the time you've totally screwed up the tube to get the last little bit out, you can no longer see the name. You can try to unravel it. You can just look at your swatch and go, oh, it's that one. And here we have a magenta, Whoops, it's just flowing out there. And a rose. A nice pink makes me happy. That's a nice pink. I'm putting it on a little bit too much water. So we're getting a few streaks. If you put it on pure, I'll show you at the end. Yellow ochre. This is a natural ground colour. Coming, of course, from the ochre, which is basically a dirt. We're not far here from the coloured sands, and they're just sands that have the minerals in them. And this is what ochre is. It's dirt that has a mineral in it. Burnt sienna. One thing I would have liked with this set is some raw. They've got the burnt sienna and the burnt umber. They don't have raw in either. Raw sienna with white can help greatly with skin tones. Colour of chestnut horses and auburn hair. Almost said urban hair. And this is burnt umber. It's a nice dark brown. And of course there's black and white, but I won't put them up here because black is black and white is white. There's difference in tones sometimes between ivory black, carbon black, charcoal black, lamp black, but pretty much black is black and white is white. But in gouache, a permanent white or titanium white will cover things really well, whereas the zinc white is more opaque, is more transparent, and will lend itself to mixing it without taking over. This is now this is the primary red. It didn't come with this set, but it says primary magenta, so this was right above magenta. So let's have a look and see how close they are. The numbers are far apart. Magenta is 582 and this is 651, so let's see. Yes, there's a great deal of difference. The magenta has a lot more purple in it, whereas primary red, which is also a magenta, just not the same magenta, is doesn't have purple in it. And the primary blue is cyan. Different companies consider different colours to be primary blue. I agree with this one. Although phthalo blue is pretty close. Phthalo blue is nice too. Now let's have a look. See, it's a little bit brighter than the pure blue. And the primary yellow will be between permanent yellow and lemon yellow. Of course, if you mix these, you know what you're going to get. If you mix the others, you're going to have to experiment, because you won't be quite so sure. For example, if I mix these two, I'm going to get purple. If I mix these two, I'm going to get green. If I mix these two, I'm going to get orange. But if I mix carmine with permanent yellow, it's going to be a darker orange. If I mix carmine with pure blue, it will be a dark, maybe a little bit muddy purple. If I mix crimson with pure blue, it would be more towards the brown. And if I mixed Prussian blue with permanent yellow, I'd get a dark green, which probably is good because a lot of these paints have the blue very bright. They're very bright, so you wouldn't do much of your forest to these colours. You want more towards the olive green, but you want to mix the olive green up with other things like the leaf green or the primary yellow or anything to get a variety of colours. I said I'd add a little bit of white, so I'm just going to put a little bit of white down there. And the difference between layering and blending is the amount of water and the amount of time you play with it. So if I take this, well, the burnt sienna is nice and bright. So if I take the white and I just put it on, it's going to stay white. This is titanium white. But if I get some more water on my brush, pick up the white, put it on, play with it a bit, it will re-wet what's underneath and change the colour. I should say, change the tone. And the same with the black. Get the black out. So if we just put it over and don't play with it, it will stay black. If I add a little bit more water and mix it in, I've got way too much black here. Oh dear. Let's get rid of half of that black. That's better. If I mix it in, a lot. Black is very strong. Let's try very little of it on another colour. So a little bit of the black on the primary blue. There we go. Now it's moving. A little bit more black. So that's a shade. So it's a tone if you add white and a shade if you add black. But black also has a tendency to kill might not be a good word, to dull down the colour. You would be better if you wanted to get a darker colour. You get a little bit of the primary blue here, and can you still see up to the green oranges? I'll just put a little tiny bit there. Make sure there's no black on the brush. Just a bit of water and mix it in. Too much water. You get the same effect as adding black without dulling down the colour too much. It will dull the colour, it won't kill it. I can't think of another word, I'm sorry. It gives you a nice brown. And if you add a little bit of black to, let's do the permanent yellow. Sometimes you can get a nice green. Well, you can get a realistic green. So you can add it to your forests, the darker sections. And next to green, that will show green and cause nice shadows. Of course, you can also get green by adding blue, but it won't be a dull blue. That's the dull blue of natural forests in between the trees. So I hope you've liked this and you've learned something from it. At least you've learned white is a tint, black is a shade, and is very strong, so add little bits at a time. And that's the Holbein Gouache, of which I am very fond. If you'd like me to have a look at any other gouaches, let me know. It's an excuse for me to buy them. And see you again next time. Thank you for watching. Please press like, and if you'd like to come back and see other ones, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to hit like and subscribe, and it does a lot for me. Thank you very much. Bye.